Welcome to Sharp Sharp. This is our 12th episode. We're recording on Wednesday, the 17th of June, 2026. And it's been a week in which Bafana, our national football team, went and played the World Cup. And despite my predictions that it was gonna draw with Mexico, Zooks, it didn't. Bafana lost badly and looked like a team that just wasn't on top of its game. Welcome to the episode.
Yeah, Rob, I'm thinking about Patrick Smith, our friend from Africa Confidential. He put money in the game and I told him that's money down the drain. And it was.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, we're playing tomorrow on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have to win, unfortunately, but I don't think we will win. You know, what is surprising for me is that
tomorrow's the game we should win. If we're going to win any game in the World Cup, it'll be this one tomorrow.
Yeah, people are already betting, Rob, on whether we will score a goal in this World Cup, let alone win a game, let alone move on.
So what is your money?
Or move on to the next stage.
Do you think it'll be money thrown down the drain if you expect us to score a goal at this World Cup?
Well, I don't think we'll move to the next stage of the World Cup. I see even small teams are taking it very seriously. It's not just that we lost, Rob. We were just not in the game. We didn't fight hard enough. We were not hungry enough. It's one thing to be beaten like 7-1 while you are working very hard, you know, to be impressive. I mean, I watched Austria versus Jordan game. Very exciting game. Very, very exciting game. I mean, Jordan coming in for the first time, you know, there are lots of teams, Rob, that are really, really working hard for their colors, and I was not impressed with our guys.
So, I mean, the tournament's been interesting for a couple of things. I mean, there was the game against Japan against the Netherlands in Dallas, after which the Japanese got up and cleaned up after themselves. I mean, that was a big surprise. I mean, I think that, like, you know, you mentioned before this podcast began, and we should import a lot of those Japanese fans to South Africa.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking at that and I thought, this is a good trick for cleaning up Joburg. Get those Japanese to come here for free and clean up this dirty city. Because, I mean, there's no way we can adopt that kind of culture as South Africans, you know. But if we could, even for a day, it would be amazing. Or what I saw there was just amazing. You know, I go and watch, mostly I go to rugby stadiums, and I'm one of the people who leave it filthy because halftime I go and get some goodies and drinks and all of that. I never really know what happened to the can by the time it's finished and I'm gone. That's very irresponsible.
So you're saying we need the Japanese fans to come, you know, head to Ellis Park and support our Springboks too?
Yeah, I mean, Japan can't seem to forget the last time they beat the Springbok. Apparently, they keep playing that game. They keep repeating it in Japan, how they beat us. Good Lord. They need to come here and we beat them again.
I mean, it was interesting after the South Africa's game against Mexico where we lost 2-0. I suppose it says a lot about what's happening in South Africa, that a lot of the other African countries were essentially trolling South Africa. They, you know, in response to the waves of xenophobia that we had, you know, reports of one person in Nairobi saying that they organized a hate watch party to support Mexico. They talked of African fans wearing Mexican jerseys to support Mexico against South Africa and protest against the waves of xenophobia. And there was one report, I think, in the BBC where the one guy said after we lost, I hope South Africa's not blaming African migrants for the 2-0 defeat and the red cards. And then another said that if South Africa loses, at least it can go back home early to protect its jobs. I mean, I think this illustrates the degree of anger on the continent about the xenophobic attacks, of which, you know, it hasn't really relented. You had, in fact, if anything, more alarms ahead of the June 30th deadline.
Yeah, Rob, look, I have always thought that because we're quite a significantly rich country and a rich league in the continent, I actually was saying that all African players, when they're done playing in Europe, etc., they need to come and play in South Africa in 1 or 2 seasons. People like Samuel Eto'o, I used to cry about him because I wanted them to come down here. People like Drogba, etc. The weather is good. The wine is good. Sandton is beautiful. The shopping malls are here, and you've got lots of Lamborghinis and Ferraris that you can drive here as the sports guys, and the girls are beautiful. Come to South Africa. So I'm saying all these African players that are playing in France, look at how beautiful they're playing there. You know, they need to come and retire here. Cape Town is something else.
Cape Town's gorgeous.
I'm talking about
as gorgeous as Dubai.
You know, but Cape Town is something else. Cape Town is just so special. You know, and everything works. Funny enough.
Okay, well, talking of things working, we're going to go on and discuss June 16th and what this meant, because this week was the June 16th commemoration of the 50th anniversary of that event in Soweto, the Soweto protests. But first, Zooks, I think we should touch on the fact that Geordin Hill-Lewis, the new leader of the DA, asked John Steenhuisen, asked President Cyril Ramaphosa to remove John Steenhuisen, his predecessor, as the agriculture minister. That's a significant move, right? As stamping his authority on the party.
Yeah. A lot of people saw this coming. Even before Geordin Hill-Lewis was elected, there were already some issues with John Steenhuisen, especially in the particular sector that is involved in. Yes, there was the foot and mouth disease issue was not handled very well. Farmers are not happy. People lost a lot of their investment in that particular sector, and government was quite slow to respond. So there was a lot of unhappiness there. So there was always going to be a need, one, to deal with that with the industry as far as that is concerned. But obviously, there are internal DA issues. There's a former leader. There's a new leader now. He needs to stem down the authority. He needs to give direction to where the DA is going. And Steenhuisen is out. I'm not surprised.
So I do wonder what this says about the rest of the party. Essentially, you have a DA leader who's appointed by the president as part of the coalition government talks. But then this means that you're only there by the sufferance of the president, really. But once your term's done, you're representing the party, essentially. And that's what it illustrates. You're representing the DA.
Yeah, look, Rob, I like this new arrangement. Now the president cannot just willy-nilly reshuffle the cabinet. He can reshuffle the ANC and no one really cares, but he can't willy-nilly reshuffle everybody, if there's an issue, he has to talk to the IFP and say, I'm not happy with Sabisa, or I'm not happy with another IFP person. Then the IFP has to bring in someone else. Like when they removed the deputy minister of the DA, it was still up to the DA to replace that person. So the power still lies with the parties, even inside the GNU. I like that arrangement.
I suppose it depends. The president ultimately has a prerogative to decide what to do. So we'll see what he does by Friday this week, perhaps, when he decides whether he's going to remove Steenhuisen. But it does seem a fait accompli that if you're representing the party and the new leader says they should not be there, then they won't be there. And
there's nothing to decide here.
Yeah.
The party is recalling somebody that they've sent. You see, the seat belongs to the party. It doesn't belong to anyone else. That's part of the arrangement. They are recalling their own person. No one is going to come in and say, no, you can't call this person.
Which is perhaps a good way to lead into the second topic, which is essentially June 16th. You've had 50 years since that major event in Soweto where school children took to the streets and police pitched up and actually shot and killed 176 people. It was a major event, and I think that escalated apartheid and what was really happening onto the front pages of the global press, and I suppose laid the platform for the ANC to ultimately gain ascendance in the struggle and leading to 1994 and the end of apartheid. And now we're in a situation 50 years later where that's all happened. We've not progressed to a point, but the ANC has lost its majority. This speaks to, in many people's view, a huge opportunity lost, I suppose. Would that be a correct phrasing of it? I know that we have people who say that there has been a lot done, and there certainly has been a lot done. You look at housing, 5 million homes built since the end of apartheid. You have the fact that 90% of people have access to clean drinking water, and there are major improvements. But for the ANC, it has been a massive opportunity lost to cement its position. Would that be a fair statement to make?
Yeah, definitely, Rob. Look, it's 30 years on. People are no longer interested in slogans and speeches and all of that. People want to see action. You've been given 30-year grace period. That's a long period. But also June 16 is quite tricky for the ANC because ANC can celebrate ANC events, but June 16 was not an ANC event. It was broadly, in terms of ideology, a Black consciousness movement type of ideology. But on the day, it was driven by the Pan-Africanist Congress.
Yeah.
That is the logistics of how what to do, how to get to Orlando Stadium, etc. All of this was all underground movements. So to this day, the ANC does not know how to celebrate June 16, just like they do not know how to celebrate. Exactly. And they don't know how to celebrate Steve Biko. Yeah. It just becomes a little bit of a short speech, etc. Those are people that they don't really identify with. Now, quite critically,
But the Pan-African Congress, which largely is more associated with Sharpeville, has diminished in the public consciousness. It's kind of essentially died in a sense, which has left the ANC in the prime position too.
Well, now they are back in the GNU. They were dead, almost dead totally. Now they are back in the GNU with a minister. Their president Nyonsho is now a minister. Sort of a new lifeblood for the PAC. That's not doing very well in terms of electoral. Even I was shocked that they were given a ministry. Like, what, for bringing less than 1% of the vote? They got an amazing deal. Look, Rob, June 16, I was hoping for less speeches and more action. Bring business in, bring everybody who loves South Africa into the whole June 16 thing, and let's work out a way of dealing with new challenges of the youth. Otherwise, no one is interested in more speeches.
I mean, it was an iconic moment. I mean, that photograph that I think, is emblematic of what actually happened, that Hector Pieterson, his body being carried next to his sister. I mean, I was reading about that photo and how the photographer had to hide the photographs in his socks. And the security police at the time came and, took his footage and ruined it all, the rest of it. It does, I think it does help to remember these events, because I think people forget just how gruesome apartheid was. This was not a normal political sense. This was this was a crime against humanity. And to some extent, you just, think, oh, well, politics is normal, but this was not that at all.
Yeah, look, Rob, it's one thing to remaining in the past and all of that, but right now, the way we remember June 16, it's actually dividing the country as opposed to uniting the country over a common cause. A common cause like education, for instance. This was a massive education march. It should have brought serious reforms around education. We are still talking about education to this day. Education should have been better than Bantu education, but it isn't. People are saying that people came out of Bantu education with real skills, and right now, what we're producing is really bad. And the pass marks have been dropped. There's a standardization of matric exams. People get free marks. But we're not producing people who are going to work in the industry, the kind of skills that we need. Those skills don't exist, Rob. So you come out of school literally with nothing. I went to a black school, Zubukwana Senior Secondary School, where I did my matric. There was not a single computer in the school. So you go through the entire schooling system. At the end of it, you get to university, say you cannot submit an assignment by writing it down. You've got to use the computer, and you don't know how to use the computer. What is that?
I mean, the thing is that, you're right that, this is about education, and we do have a matric mark that is allegedly 88% of people pass. But the fact is, if you look 2 years before, grade 10s, it's only really 57% of those who pass. So there's a way of gerrymandering the statistics. So it looks fantastic. It looks like we have more people passing. But fundamentally, it means nothing if you're not training people for the right economy.
Yeah, I was impressed by... Actually, I was interested in the speech that was made by the new Minister of Education now, since it's coming from the DA.
Mm-hmm.
But the DA has always said the matric results that we are looking at are not the real matric results, because almost 1 million kids have dropped out from grade R over the last 12 years. Lots of kids have disappeared in the system. We should care a lot about those kids. What become of those kids? Where are they? What happened? As opposed to celebrating at the end a picture that looks good, but it's actually not a good picture at all. But she didn't seem to be singing that tune now. She's the Minister of Education. She's just talking about the results, etc. But I think in the back of her mind, she knows that there's a lot of work to be done. She's quite committed also in developing kids from a very early age. She's making real investment. I think about 15 billion has been put into it.
But I mean, I've spoken to her and I find it very impressive. But the fact is, it's not the money. We spend quite a lot of our money on education.
Yeah.
It's the results. I mean, I think it's a lot like the police. We spend quite a large proportion of our economy on policing, but we don't get the results because it's managed badly. And education is definitely one of those. We had the report, I think the full-length report in about, maybe it was 2013 or so, saying that the trade unions had captured, I think 60% or 70% of the actual provinces of the education systems, which means that bad teachers were in positions where they shouldn't have been in the public schools. And you've had a wide-scale privatization of education where people can afford it, send their kids to good schools, get good education. But the majority of people are condemned to a situation where they're getting terrible education. And you've seen the standardized tests, the PIRLS test, which is I think it's the Progress in Reading Literacy study. South Africa was last in the world. I mean, 81% of grade 4s can't read for meaning, which is shocking. I mean, I think the same with the TIMS one, which is mathematics and science. 40% of our students just they're not at the level they should be. That illustrates that fundamentally you're not training people for what you should be.
Yeah, Rob, look, my daughters are telling me that these days, because I was asking them to read to me, they're like, no, you don't do that anymore, because if somebody can read, then the other kids laugh at them, etc. It's like, what? We actually had to read Macbeth.
Yeah,
Julius Caesar, yeah, and they'll be like, you are Macbeth, you are Banco, this is who you are, and you will have to read that English, and you're like, what the? It was quite difficult, but you got better. You got better all the time.
A lot of South Africans reading Macbeth. I tell you what, I know you are so.
You got to a point where,
hi, father, what's going on now?
Obviously, you could read for meaning. You just had to.
Well, reading for meaning with Shakespeare is touch and go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Rob, look, the education system, we can do better. We should do better. But I don't see it happening, Rob. Look, let's say you want to skill the teachers now to be able to teach computer studies, right? How many SATU people have got that? And how long would it take for that to happen? They send computer labs now to the new schools, and those computer labs are not connected to the internet. Here in Joburg, they've got smart schools. That's what they call them, smart schools, etc. You get there are computers, they're not connected to the internet. What on earth is that? Just bring Elon Musk, and get these things connected. What is the point of having a computer in 2026 that is not connected to the internet? Yeah, sure. That's not a computer.
I mean, my kids went to kind of a local public school nearby, and the fact is that, like, if you had a bad teacher, they don't get rid of bad teachers often. If you're St. John's, the parents will demand those teachers get axed. So the sense of things happen more carnivorously in the private sector is true. If there's a bad teacher, they'll get kicked out. But the unions will protect bad teachers in the public sector, which keeps people there. And it's ultimately looking after the individual teachers rather than the good of the students.
Yeah.
So it's the perspective is on the wrong thing.
Yeah, bad results can go on for a very long time, Rob. I was saying in the last episode that my maths teacher was Mr. Adai from Ghana, which saddens me to see the people from Ghana leaving. But before him, things were really bad. And when he came through, because he was sort of good, he had to go to Standard 8. We're talking about Standard those days. This was like 90s. Standard 8, Standard 9, and Standard 10. And I was at 10A, but they were up to 10E in my school. So you can imagine the workload on that man. So that's what happens to a good teacher. He pays the price for everybody else who's bad.
I mean, Eusebius Makaza, who was a friend of mine, he used to talk about how we used to celebrate in January the students from these terrible schools who get, 6 A's and do fantastically well. But he said we shouldn't be celebrating this because all it is like a celebration of their defiance of the odds. That should be the norm. You should have access to that kind of education. You shouldn't be talking about how they've done so fantastically well despite all the challenges. They should have been absolutely facilitated. So to say this, that they've done so well, when actually that's what everyone should have, is completely missing the mark of just how access should be a lot better than it is. And we tend to think this is exceptional when we're not holding the politicians who've created this disaster accountable for the poor education outcomes.
That statement reminds me of how Musi Maimane and others were fighting in Parliament, saying that math literacy must go. What on earth is math literacy? It must go, because you got pure maths higher grade, then you got pure maths standard grade, and you had pure maths lower grade. But the point of the matter is that everybody was in that class, and then it depends on how you perform, then you'll be regraded. But in terms of the knowledge acquisition, at least you were not excluded in the class. To just say that you must just know how to count amagwinya fed cook and that's maths. No, that's not maths.
Math
but
says what happens for the Joburg city accounts. I mean, I like those.
Yeah, and they're definitely using maths lit there, because I heard they spent about 65,000 rand to fix one pothole. How can it cost that much to fix a pothole? But really, if everything goes to tender and then the guy who gets the tender gives it to another guy and all of that, it's definitely going to go to 60,000 rand to fix a single pothole.
I mean, that's the kind of thing. You've had very perverse outcomes of our economy. We celebrate the fact that South Africa is a lot better than it was 50 years ago, and it absolutely is. I mean, you have lots of things that have gone well, like we mentioned, but you also have a situation where you have 18 million people on social grants and you have 12 million people out of work. So that essentially our economy is working for some people, but not working for everyone. So it would be fair to say that the kind of the things that people fought for in 1976 hasn't really happened. I mean, despite the fact that you have democracy, you don't have an effective economy.
Yeah, Rob, I'm only being generous when we say 18 million, it's close to around 28 million. When you look at everybody who's receiving some kind of a grant.
Some kind of a grant, okay.
Yeah. You see, if you come from where I come from, Rob, the child is on a grant. The grandchildren are on a grant. The child's mother and father are on a 370 grant. Anybody who goes to school is also on a grant, because if you go to TVET, they actually pay you. People are actually getting paid to go to school, because that accommodation, you can say accommodation is 2,000 rand, it's only 500 rand accommodation in Mount Fred. People have built houses. Scrolla ran a story about this guy who has built a house using money from NSFAS, So everybody, Rob, is on a grant. I need me a piece of grant.
I mean, Kumbuzo Nchiveni yesterday, she was speaking at a kind of a youth day rally about this, and she was asked about this and the anger of people about the fact that there is so many people without jobs. And she said, well, government doesn't create jobs. She said government creates opportunities for economic developments and economic growth, and the youth must then basically take the metal into their own hands and create these jobs. I mean, I find that very disingenuous because, for one thing, the government hasn't created the fertile economic platform to create jobs. You have a massive amount of people, like you say, whether it's 18 million at the narrow definition, 28 million people on social grants, that does not tell you that there's a fertile economic environment for jobs.
If anything, they're actually celebrating this number as some kind of achievement that we've put so many people on the social security net. That's not an achievement. That's a failure. People want to work. People want to build their own houses. It's actually an achievement to build your own house. I built my house from the ground up, from the first brick. And trust me, it's no joke. But it's an achievement. I don't think people just exist to want to get free things, free water, free houses, free education, free everything. No, that's not what people want. People want jobs.
If there's been this big discussion about the fact that, we're now so many years, 32 years after the end of apartheid, and the economy hasn't really transformed. It really hasn't transformed. You have so many people just without skills. I mean, do you then, policies like affirmative action and black empowerment, we've written a lot about it in recent weeks. And one of the reports we reported on said essentially that the problem is that government looks at black empowerment policy as the goal itself, rather than the goal being transformation of the economy. And in fact, if you look at it in that perspective, then transformation hasn't really happened. And then if BE isn't working, then get rid of that tool and find another tool. I mean, do you think that you need to have sunset clauses on affirmative action if it doesn't work, or do we retool it? I mean, what do you think this says about the tools that the government has used to transform the economy since the end of apartheid that hasn't worked?
This noise around BEE used to be a white-only noise, Rob, but now it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Black people are saying BEE has not worked. You got people really with half a brain who become millionaires without delivering anything. So it's high time that it is reviewed or replaced with something. I think the issue now is where we all disagree. We seem to disagree. One, we agree that BE has not worked. It's not achieved what it's supposed to. But we don't seem to agree on what to replace it with.
I mean, certainly you look at the achievements since the end of apartheid, and there is a black middle class. But the point is that it hasn't transformed people at the bottom of the I suppose ladder. The fact that 99.8% of the people in the absolute lowest poverty ranks are still black. tells you that there's a whole class of people, a huge group of people that are not being catered to, that have never been addressed.
Rob, what are you talking about? The system is designed to steal from the economy, to legally steal from the economy. I just told you now, it costs 65,000 rand or more just to fix a pothole in Johannesburg. We all know it doesn't cost that. What is that? It's a system that is designed to steal from the economy, to steal from the taxpayers' money. We make 2 trillion rands here as taxpayers in South Africa, and what do we get in return? That's the thing that is very infuriating about a collapsing state, because you continue to be taxed, but you get outside, you don't see what is going on. That is exactly what is going on. There is legalized looting of state resources. It's this tender system. It's this black economic empowerment that we're talking about, the overpricing of things. How can you pay 50 or 60 rand for a loaf of bread that is actually 10 rand, 15 rand?
There was, I think, at Eskom, when news of what was happening at Eskom came out, they were paying 26 rand for a toilet roll that should have cost you 4 rand.
Jeez.
Single-ply toilet rolls, not even
single-ply,
not even double-ply. I mean, they were paying 51 rand for a refuse bag that should cost you 2 rand. I think one mop cost something like 20,000 rand. It was ludicrous, and this does illustrate. I mean, that's why people are angry at taxes. That's why they think, why should we pay Eskom these huge amounts in the timesheets for power when this is what you do with our money?
Exactly. I mean, to hear that power has gone up over 900%. There's power now. There's no more load shedding, but no one can afford it. So that's what I'm talking about, Rob. Get rid of black economic empowerment. Again, scrutinized municipal contracts. This overpricing, it's gone beyond madness. Something that's 1 million rand is now 10 million rand. They tell you that the municipality is opening a new bridge. You look at the bridge, and then the budget. You're like, no way. This is madness.
I made a better one with Lego.
Those people must be arrested. Treasury must go there and say, okay, that's a 10 million rand bridge. And worse, when the rains come through in Limpopo, the bridge is gone.
So the one person who would definitely agree with you on that is Elon Musk. To close off the show today, let's talk about the fact that Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, I think 3 years before June 26th. Oh, maybe it was 5 years before June 16th. In 1976, and his birthday is actually next Thursday. So he's somebody who was born there and would really agree with you that they don't need black empowerment anymore. And last week he became the first trillionaire in the world, which was fantastic. Did you see the listing of SpaceX?
Oh yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I've noticed, Rob, that we South Africans like to claim Elon Musk when he does all of these achievements. We want to say now a South African is the first trillionaire in the world. But when that man wants to come and reinvest in South Africa, which we all know he's not going to make money. There's no way in hell he's going to make money by coming and investing here. But we would block him for political reasons. That is madness.
Well, I do think he would make money investing in here. I mean, the point is, Starlink wants to have a global system where it covers all the countries. I mean, this is a profitable thing. I mean, I know that Tesla didn't make profits for years, but ultimately it's about building a global network. So it will ultimately suit him. It'll definitely benefit him too.
Ultimately, but for us, 5,000 schools will benefit immediately, the very same week. You see, the thing with Elon Musk technology is that it's already in the sky. All he has to do is switch it on. How long would it take for anyone else to try and put that technology, those resources, and actually empower these 5,000 schools? We've got a lot of schools that are never going to catch up, Rob. Never going to catch up. We are still talking about delivery of textbooks in a new academic year. By June, they are still talking about whether textbooks actually reach Zibukwana or Mkanduli. It's mid-year. We shouldn't be talking about that. Those things should be on the tablet. The kids just learn from day one of school. And when it's really raining and they can't go to school, they can learn from home. Wrong.
I mean, that's the point. You talk about, this episode's largely been about kind of 1976 and the education system. But if you want to deal with the fact that our reading literacy is so low, our math literacy is so low, then the internet and connectivity is definitely one way to address that.
Absolutely. You're talking about bad teachers. Now, if you've got a bad teacher in class, but you've got connectivity in your village, because around the school, there will be connectivity. You'll have people sitting around the school there that's connected. You can still watch a teacher in Germany. They'll teach you other shortcuts about how to resolve the maths problem. Just there. That's education, Rob, and that's what we want to achieve.
And we actually have a great marketing opportunity because there's only one school in the whole world that has created a trillionaire, and that's Pretoria Boys High School, just down the road from where we're recording this episode. So you can say, St. John's, all these fancy schools, Rodin in South Africa, like they can eat their hearts out. They haven't got the marketing brochure on Pretoria Boys High, which is created. It's a subset of 100% of the world's trillionaires went to Pretoria Boys.
There you go again. Claiming Musk. We better claim him better, allow him to come and invest in South Africa. That's what we need.
Okay, well, that's Sharp for this week. Remember to send all your children, grandchildren, anyone you might know to Pretoria Boys if you want to be trillionaires. And join us next week on Sharp.
Sharp.